My name is Samantha Reed, and if you asked anyone in the city about me, they tell you I live in one of the most beautiful homes on the block, polished oak floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the neighborhood that still makes me catch my breath sometimes. But what they don't know, what I've kept tucked close to my heart, is how this all began. This morning, I stood by my window with a cup of coffee warming my hands, watching the sun spill across the manicured lawns outside. The world looked calm, steady. My silk blouse clung softly to my shoulders, and for a moment, I felt the weight of peace that comes only after a storm you've already survived. That's when my phone buzzed. I picked it up, expecting another email from my office, but no. It was a message. From him. Ryan Miller. My cousin. The cousin who once laughed at the peeling paint of my old front porch, who sneered at my small bedroom with the creaky floorboards. The boy who made me feel so small in the one place that should have been my sanctuary. Now, years later, he wanted to catch up. I let out a quiet laugh, the kind that's more bitter than sweet. Oh, if only he knew. Because the house he mocked? That girl he mocked? I don't just have a house anymore. I own the neighborhood. I still remember that summer like it was yesterday. I was 19, still living in the same house my parents had scraped together enough money to buy back in the 90s. The siding was chipped, the kitchen counters had burn marks from years of family dinners, and the front porch sagged under its own weight. But to me, it was home. Ryan came over with his parents for a 4th of July barbecue. He was always the flashy one, the golden boy of the family. He'd just bought a brand new car with his dad's money, and he made sure everyone knew it. When he stepped into our house, I caught the smirk right away. His eyes darted across the cracked linoleum, the crooked family photos lining the hallway. Wow, he muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. This place looks cozy. Like, if cozy meant falling apart. The word stung more than I wanted to admit. I laughed it off, but my throat tightened. My hands shook as I set down the tray of lemonade, spilling a few drops that sparkled on the old wood table. He didn't stop there. At dinner, he joked about how he'd need to sanitize after sitting on our couch. He compared my little bedroom to a storage closet. My cheeks burned hotter with each jab, and I felt the weight of everyone's silence. Nobody defended me. Later that night, when the fireworks lit the sky, I slipped out to the porch alone. I could still hear Ryan's laugh echoing in my ears. That's when my grandmother, Evelyn, came and sat beside me. She was small, with silver hair always pulled into a neat bun, but her presence carried more strength than anyone else I knew. She didn't scold me for crying. She just handed me a small leather notebook, worn and soft at the edges. "Sam," she said gently, "people will always measure you by what they can see. But that's their blindness, not your worth. Write down what you dream, and then go make it real. Don't prove him wrong for revenge. Prove yourself right for your own soul." I held that notebook tight that night, pressing my cheek against it like it was a lifeline. And in that moment, with Ryan's mocking words still stinging in my chest, I made a quiet promise. One day, I'd build a life no one could laugh at. The day after that barbecue, I opened the leather notebook my grandmother had given me. On the first page, I wrote in shaky handwriting, "One day, I'll own something bigger than this house. Something that can't be mocked." I didn't know how I'd do it, but I knew I had to start somewhere. At first, it was small jobs, waitressing, tutoring, even scrubbing floors for a cleaning company. Every dollar felt like a stepping stone. My parents worried I was working too much, but I told them, it's just temporary. What I didn't tell them was that every paycheck went into a savings account I refused to touch. One afternoon, while dropping off coffee for a local office, I overheard 2 real estate agents talking. Their conversation was like another language, but one phrase stuck with me. Equity builds wealth. That night, I Googled every word I didn't understand. Mortgages, market value, appreciation. It was overwhelming, but it lit something inside me. I signed up for community college classes in real estate and business management. Nights were spent hunched over textbooks, weekends filled with open houses where I volunteered just to learn. I got laughed at more times than I could count. "You're too young. You don't have the connections. This business eats people alive." But then came Margaret Lawson. She was a seasoned broker, sharp as glass, but with the kindest heart. She saw me lingering at an open house, scribbling notes like a student. Instead of brushing me off, she pulled me aside. "Curiosity like that," she said, tapping my notebook. "That's how you survive in this business.
Come work with me."
Margaret became my mentor. She pushed me harder than anyone, made me redo contracts until I could write them in my sleep, forced me to present to clients when I thought my voice would give out from nerves. She was tough, but she believed in me. And slowly, the wins came. My first apartment sale, small, but enough to cover a semester of tuition. My first client who left me a handwritten thank you note. My first check that had more zeros than I'd ever seen with my name attached. I still remember standing in a tiny studio apartment I'd just bought to renovate and rent out. It smelled like dust and old carpet, but to me, it smelled like freedom. I took a picture, not to post online, not to brag, but to tape inside my grandmother's notebook. A reminder of the girl who once sat on a broken porch, promising herself something bigger. Through it all, I kept quiet with my family. When they asked, I said I was doing fine. When they pressed, I brushed it off with, just working hard. I never posted flashy updates, never showed the late-night contracts or the checks I deposited. I wanted the day of revelation to be mine. Not to prove Ryan wrong, but to prove to myself that the girl he mocked was long gone. And by the time I turned 27, I had quietly built an empire of properties, not just houses, but entire streets, including the very neighborhood I live in now. It happened on a crisp fall afternoon. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon and leaves, and the whole neighborhood was alive with kids running down sidewalks and couples walking dogs. I had just finished arranging a vase of fresh lilies on my marble kitchen island when the knock came. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Ryan. He stood there in a pressed shirt, hair perfectly styled, the same smug expression I remembered, though softened now, like life hadn't been as kind to him as he pretended. Behind him, my aunt and uncle hovered, their smiles polite but tight. "Samantha," he said, voice dripping with surprise.
"Wow."
"This is your place." I stepped aside, letting them in.
"Yes."
"Welcome." The moment they crossed the threshold, I watched their faces shift. Their eyes darted from the gleaming hardwood floors to the framed art pieces that told pieces of my journey, a painting gifted by Margaret, a photograph of the first building I bought. Their footsteps echoed in the spacious living room, where sunlight streamed through glass walls. Ryan's jaw tightened. "It's nice," he muttered, as if the word burned his tongue. "Nice," my aunt whispered, running her fingers over the polished banister. "This looks like something out of a magazine." I smiled softly, pouring them coffee in delicate porcelain cups. I didn't rush to explain. I wanted them to sit in it, the weight of their assumptions unraveling in real time. Finally, Ryan couldn't take it anymore. "So, what do you do? Who's paying for all this?" I let the silence stretch just long enough before answering. "I am." His laugh came sharp and hollow.
"Come on, Sam."
"Seriously." I met his eyes, steady, unflinching. "I own this house. In fact, I own the neighborhood." The words dropped into the room like thunder. My aunt froze mid-sip. My uncle blinked rapidly. And Ryan, his face went pale, lips parting as if he'd misheard. "You what?" I leaned back against the counter, letting my blouse fall perfectly against my shoulders, my grandmother's leather notebook resting near the flowers as if to remind me of the promise I once made. "Every home on this street? I own them. I built this block. The rentals, the renovations, the sales, all mine." Ryan's eyes flickered, searching for a crack, a punchline. "But you? You used to live in—" He stopped himself, but I knew what he was about to say. "That broken-down house. That porch with the peeling paint." "Yes," I said softly, almost kindly. "I used to live there. And you mocked me for it." The room went silent except for the faint tick of the wall clock. My aunt shifted uncomfortably, guilt swimming across her face. My uncle cleared his throat. But Ryan just stared. The smugness was gone, replaced by something rawer, disbelief, shame, maybe even envy. I let them sit in the truth a little longer before standing straighter, my voice calm but firm. I worked for this. Every late night, every deal, every risk, I built it all from the ground up. So yes, Ryan. The girl you laughed at? She's the woman who owns the very streets you're standing on. His hands clenched at his sides. I didn't mean. But the words were too late. The past was already carved in memory. I looked around my home, the sunlight glowing across every polished surface, and for the first time in years, I felt the scales balance. This was my moment, and he knew it. Ryan stood there, fidgeting with the sleeve of his shirt, his arrogance stripped away. For the first time in my life, I saw him without that smug armor. He looked small. I didn't mean to hurt you back then, he muttered, his voice low, almost defensive. We were kids. I was just joking. I tilted my head, letting his words hang. A joke that stayed with me for years. Words that shaped the way I push myself every single day. I set down my coffee cup gently, my tone steady, but edged with steel. Do you understand now why I don't take those things lightly? He swallowed hard, but before he could answer, my aunt spoke up. Samantha, we're proud of you.
Truly.
We didn't realize, her voice trailed off, guilt pressing into each syllable. I nodded slowly. I know. And I don't hold grudges, not anymore. But understand this. The woman I am today isn't someone who tolerates disrespect or empty apologies. If you want to be part of my life, there are conditions. Ryan's head snapped up, eyes wide. Conditions? Yes, I said firmly. I turned first to my aunt and uncle. You've always measured success by surface. Cars, money, appearances. I need you to start valuing people for who they are, not what they own. Support your children for their dreams, not for the prestige you think they should bring you. If you can't do that, don't expect my door to stay open. They exchanged uneasy glances, but both nodded. Then I faced Ryan. And you've spent your life competing, tearing others down to feel taller. That ends now. If you want to stand here as family, you'll need to learn humility. Volunteer. Work somewhere where nobody knows your name or your last name. Build yourself without leaning on your father's money. Only then will you understand what real worth feels like. His jaw tightened, pride battling with shame. That's a lot. It's necessary, I replied softly but firmly. I don't need you to worship me, Ryan. I need you to respect me and, more importantly, to respect yourself enough to grow. Until then, don't expect invitations to my table. The silence stretched, heavy but cleansing. I could see the sting in their eyes, but I didn't flinch. For once, I wasn't the girl on the sagging porch, trying to hide her tears. I was the woman who built an empire from the ashes of mockery. Finally, Ryan nodded, though barely. I'll try. I gave him a faint smile.
Good.
That's all I ask. Effort.
Change.
Growth. I picked up my grandmother's leather notebook from the counter, running my fingers along its worn edges. This, I held it up, was given to me when I thought I had nothing. And it carried me here. Maybe someday you'll find your version of this. Until then, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Their eyes lingered on me, no longer with mockery or doubt, but with something new, respect. And for me, that was enough. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable began to happen. My aunt started calling me, not with shallow updates about whose car was newer or whose promotion sounded fancier, but to ask genuine questions. She wanted to know how I handled stress, how I balanced my work and health. There was hesitation in her voice, but also sincerity. My uncle, the quiet one, sent me an email with a photo attached. He had signed up to volunteer at a local food pantry. You were right, he wrote. I forgot how humbling it is to serve. And Ryan surprised me the most. One Saturday, I drove past a construction site downtown and nearly laughed when I spotted him there, hard hat on, sweat running down his face, hauling wood alongside the crew. He didn't see me, but I saw him. For the first time, he looked like a man who wasn't performing, but learning. It wasn't a fairy tale transformation overnight. There were stumbles, awkward silences, moments when old habits slipped through. But the difference was clear. The mocking tone, the careless arrogance, it was fading. As for me, I found myself back on that same porch where it all began. The house still stood, weathered but dignified, and I ran my hand along the old railing. It no longer made me feel small. It reminded me of the fire that once sparked inside me. I pulled out my grandmother's leather notebook, now thick with pages filled over the years. Flipping to the very first entry, I read the words I had scribbled at 19. One day, I'll own something bigger than this house. Something that can't be mocked. A tear slipped down my cheek, but this time it wasn't from shame. It was from pride. From gratitude. From the knowledge that I had kept my promise to myself. I closed the notebook gently, tucking it under my arm. The sun dipped low, casting golden light across the neighborhood. My neighborhood. Children's laughter echoed, sprinklers hissed, and families waved from porches I had once dreamed of. I wasn't the girl hiding tears anymore. I was the woman who turned pain into power, mockery into motivation. And as I stepped off that old porch, I whispered to myself the words I wanted the world to hear. He mocked my house. Now I own the neighborhood.